Andriy Lysenko, Colonel. He is the spokesperson for the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. Доброго дня, пані та панове. Дозвольте представити вам нашого спікера на сьогодні. Це речник Ради національної безпеки і оборони України, полковник Андрій Лисенко.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Let's start our briefings. Yesterday, from Kharkiv to the Netherlands, there was sent 2 more aircrafts with the deceased bodies, 38 deceased bodies after air crash of Malaysian Airlines. Totally, from the beginning of rescue works, there were sent 227 bodies of deceased people. The actions in the conflict area, the situation in ATO zone and at the border with Russia remains in tension. Ukrainian servicemen continues the planned attack on the temporary occupied territories. The detachments of Ukrainian military forces has reached the suburbs of Gorlivka and continues to neutralize by informations due to the quick maneuver. They managed to neutralize 8 items of technique and 2 dozens of terrorists. Currently, they're holding fighting on Pervomaisk and Debaltsev. During the last day, the militants committed 31 attacks on checkpoints and positions of Ukrainian forces around the settlements Luhansk, Nova Petrinka, Avdiivka, Alexandrivka, Marinivka, Debaltsevo, Gorlivka, Maryanivka, Kozhevna, Andriivka, Starobesheva, Kamyshevata, and some others. At the Ukrainian and Russian border, the situation is also rather complicated. Russia continues to increase the military presence and enlarge the group of personnel and equipment in vicinity of the border. Yesterday, we have fixed 2 columns near Gukova in Russian Federation. We have fixed 28 automobiles, 8 tanks, 10 armored vehicles, and 9 artillery installations. In Sumy region, the border guards noticed the vehicles with Russian servicemen. This was near Gaivoron, near the state border of Ukraine. In Rostov-na-Donu, in Russian Federation, 2 battalions with the mercenaries from Caucasus arrived, and they are planned to be sent to Ukraine. Also, they are equipping the artillery points near Matveyev Kurgan, Kuybyshevo, Novoshakhtinsk, and they continue air intelligence in the pre-border regions. During the last day, 1 Ukrainian serviceman was killed, 35 were wounded. In general, since the beginning, 332 Ukrainian soldiers were slain and 1,293 were wounded. The situation in settlements within the perimeter of hostility remains rather worrying. Yesterday, there was blow up of the bridge between Avdiivka and Donetsk. Then, yesterday, we have received information that the terrorists kidnapped children from the orphanage in Lugansk. The intelligence data prove that they plan to take these children to Russia. Thus, 61 child and 9 members of personnel now are taken as hostages by terrorists. There are also 16 babies in that number. Ministry of Healthcare and Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, they are doing everything possible to find and liberate this children. The information is sent to the international community. The Ministry of the Foreign Affairs tries to do something with the Russian government. In Lysychansk, our soldiers continue to provide humanitarian support to the local population. They resumed electricity supply to the city hospital. This allowed to provide assistance and first aid to wounded soldiers and to local residents. In Kramatorsk, Ukrainian soldiers revealed 16 boxes with mines. They were hidden in the territory of one of the local enterprises. The High Commissioner, the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights, Navi Pillay, has stated that the terrorists from Ukraine should be brought into responsibility to the Hague court. And she believes that all the parties to the conflict should stick with the international law and protect peaceful population. Those who violate these commitments, the international community will bring to the responsibility. She also reminds that this is the responsibility of the International Court in The Hague, and that experts have collected sufficient evidences supporting the violation of the human rights in Ukraine. So my first question is about information which was published by representative of Russia in Rostov Oblast, Vasil Malayev. He mentioned that yesterday around 40 Ukrainian servicemen deserted from Ukrainian forces and fled to Russia in Rostov-on-Oblast. We are double-checking this information, and by now we have no data either supporting or denying this information. This same representative of the border service of Russia provided information that that there were 19 wounded people in that group of people who crossed Ukrainian border. Also, he stated that there were two slain soldiers in that number, and that they have crossed Russian border first and then crossed the border back to Ukrainian territory. What can you say? As far as I know, in Gukova hospitals in Russia, currently there are 4 wounded soldiers, and transportation of those soldiers was delayed when the previous party of Ukrainian wounded soldiers was transported from Gukova to Ukraine, because those 4 people were more heavily wounded and they were untransportable at that time. Do you know something about 2 bodies of slain soldiers? No, we have no this information. I would like to remind you that if something happens at the border and our border service is involved, then immediately the border guards writes down special notes to us and to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We haven't received this information yet. Also, there is an information that near Dovzhansk there is firefighting at this very moment. Besides Davzhansky, currently the combat is holding in Izvarine, Червонопартизанське, Маринівка, Горлівка. From Makiyivka to Shakhtarsk, our soldiers are moving. As you can see, the hostility perimeter is shrinking because our forces are fighting day and night. Currently, we have liberated 2/3 of the previous perimeter of hostility. And I believe that in nearest future, we will finalize the operation and the eastern territories of Ukraine will be fully liberated from terrorists, I can assure you. What about the 79th Brigade? I've heard that yesterday they received necessary support, but their wives continue to manifest at the highway near Mykolaiv. Please understand that necessary support was provided to the servicemen, and wives were informed, and we clearly understand them that they worry, they try to help their husbands, their sons, etc. But our guys have everything possible. Today in Twitter was an information that there were first 10 Russian tanks moving to Diakovo, then about 2 Russian tanks moving to Diakovo, etc. National Security and Defense Council does not rely on the information from Twitter. We have the information what we have is as follows: that there is military equipment approaching to the state border of Ukraine from Russian Federation, and that they stay there and accumulate there.
David Hersman with the New York Times. Colonel, we have a report from Washington that officials at the Pentagon are preparing a plan for consideration by President Obama to provide Ukraine with real-time satellite and intelligence data on the position of missiles on the territory of the Russian Federation, intelligence that would be more usable for real-time strikes and military action. Has Ukraine requested this kind of assistance? Would Ukraine welcome this assistance? Is there other aid that the United States or NATO could provide that has been requested by Ukraine at this time?
Thank you for your question. Україна вітає будь-яку допомогу.
Thank you for your question. Ukraine will be happy with any assistance which will allow us to speed up the finalizing of the conflict in Donbass. Yulia Sedvik for Al Jazeera. Whether you can confirm the information that Ukrainian army has liberated the territory where the Malaysian aircraft was shut down? No, we are only approaching to this area, and we are working hard to do this to be able to guarantee the access to this area to international experts in order to be able to understand the real reason for the air crash. Телеканал Україна. What is the situation with the military brigades number 79 and 72? we won't provide detailed information because the terrorists will immediately use this information for their purposes. But I can assure you that yesterday those brigades which you have just mentioned were supplied with necessary ammunition, foodstuff, and weapons.
Clarify the situation with the international police at the crash site. There seems to be some confusion. The Malaysians say they have a deal with separatists to allow a police force on the site. There's some confusion about whether the need to ratify the agreement with the Netherlands in the RADA is delaying investigators from reaching the site. Can you clarify what's happening out there, who's allowed to work out there, and how long the police will be able to stay?
Дякую за питання.
Thank you for your question. Yesterday, the agreement was reached between the president and between parliamentary factions that they will have a special meeting of special session of the Verkhovna Rada devoted to giving access of these international police forces to the territory of Ukraine, and all leaders of factions stated that they support the presidential initiative because they believe this is extremely important for Ukrainian victory. On Thursday, our preliminary agreed date was Thursday. Thank you very much.
17.